Tekken has changed a lot in its 30 plus years of existence. Until Tekken 3, you couldn't even sidestep. Stage walls weren't a thing until Tekken 4, and for half of the series' existence, the gameplay featured a completely different combo system. At the Game Awards 2022, Tekken 8's gameplay was first shown to the world, and we immediately knew we were in for changes. Big ones. Tekken 8 introduced the biggest changes to the series since Tekken 3, both mechanically and, of course, visually. If someone who only played Legacy Tekken looked at Tekken 8 gameplay today, they likely would have absolutely no idea what's going on. That's how different Tekken looks and plays these days. So, maybe you're here because you missed the old days of Tekken. Or maybe you just need a break from all the particles, the swords, and the plus-on-block stance moves you have to deal with today. Join me as I return to Tekken Tag Tournament 2, the most hardcore and competitive Tekken game in series history.
Yeah.
Chungy, there you go.
Oh, Chungy with the low parry. I don't know how people do stuff like that, but it's really impressive.
Wow, nice.
Oh, nice. Well, oh, going around. Well, I have never seen that before.
Wow.
What is going on?
Oh, nice.
One hit.
Oh my god.
And the Gamecom still got it. Wow, definitely. Shield. Oh! Buzzer! Both players today stop thinking. This is what I was talking about earlier. Back 1-2, what can you do with the mix-up?
Oh!
Oh
He
my
said,
God.
kiss my convert.
Yeah. Alright, open time. Oh, what did it come? Oh my goodness. Oh, Venezuela.
Today, we're going to be going over the 9 most influential top tiers in Tekken Tag 2's life. These are the characters who I believe best define the game and had the biggest impact on the community and on the competitive scene. Before we get into the characters, we need to talk a little bit about some of the game's systems and how it all worked. If you already know this stuff, feel free to skip ahead to the timestamp on the screen. Tekken Tag 2 functioned unlike any other Tekken game as one of the most complex and mechanical fighting games out there. In Tag 2, you naturally would pick 2 characters. Each character would have 180 HP. However, it's not like other tag games where if one character dies, you immediately just switch to the other one. In this game, if one character dies, you lose the round. This means switching is heavily incentivized, and if you were low HP, you would always want to look for any way possible to switch to your tag partner to avoid losing the round. This was even more incentivized by the red health mechanic. A chunk of the damage you took would be red and would remain on your health bar. The only way to recover this health would be to tag out and let the other character rest and slowly start to heal up. Okay, but how does tagging work? Well, at any time during the gameplay, you can press the tag button and immediately switch out your character. This was mostly done right after you came out of a combo and were knocked far away from your opponents. You would almost never want to tag when you were in close quarters, as it could be punished very hard if it was predicted. But what about all those cool combos you just saw? Well, in Tekken Tag 2, there's 2 ways you could use the tag system mid-combo. After hitting a bound in your combo, every single character in the game can press the tag button to briefly switch to their other character. This is called a tag assault, and you always know it's a tag assault because this white border comes around both of your characters. This mechanic is designed to allow you to extend combos, sometimes just a bit, and sometimes a lot. When your other character comes in, you are on the clock. This isn't actually a full switch. The character comes in, allows you to get a couple hits, and then automatically swaps back to your original character. There's ways to extend how long the tag assault lasts, usually through utilizing stance cancels, but don't worry about that for now. Basically, you press a button in the middle of your combo, your other character comes out and gives you some extra damage and wall travel, before quickly switching back. This comes at a cost, however. As soon as you use a tag assault, your opponent's secondary character instantly gets rage status. More on this later. You also lose all recoverable health that the tagged-in character might have been recovering in the background. In addition to this, the rest of your combo damage becomes all recoverable. Realistically though, the only time you wouldn't want to use a tag assault to get a bigger combo is when your other tag character was recovering a huge amount of HP, enough so that it wasn't worth losing all that HP just to get a little bit more damage. But this was pretty situational. Besides that, they were almost always used in combos, and contribute to some of the flashiest combos we've ever seen in this series. The other method of using the tag system in combos is usually known as a tag buffer. Certain moves in this game have a special property that allows you to press the normal tag button right after the move to immediately switch to your other character. This isn't like Tag Assault where there's a white border and the character only stays for a couple seconds. No, when you do this, you stay as the other character until you decide to switch back. Doing this comes without any of the penalties of the Tag Assault. You keep your recoverable health, you don't give your opponent rage, and it also removes a chunk of your opponent's red health. So while using a Tag Assault makes you lose your recoverable health, using a tag buffer makes your opponent. Pretty great quality to have. As you can imagine by this, tag buffers are incredibly strong. Now again, only certain moves allow you to do this, and let's just say all characters are absolutely not built equally in this regard. Characters that have better tag bufferable launchers are generally much stronger than the others. So basically, anytime you see a super long combo where it looks like the player is just switching back and forth over and over again, it'll follow this format. You'll use a combo starter and then immediately tag buffer, keep comboing until you get a bound, Tag Assault to switch back momentarily, and then finish the combo with your other character. This mechanic made team building very important. The best players in the world would usually build their teams like this. They'd start with a character who has strong tag bufferable launchers first, and then use a character who has amazing wall carry and combo ability to switch out to and get big damage. By the way, Tekken Tag 2 had the highest combo damage in series history. It was very normal to lose 70% of one of your character's health in one combo, and you're gonna see a lot more than that in the rest of the video. There's a lot more nuance to it, but that's the basics. And I'll explain more throughout the video when it's actually relevant. Alright, I think that's more than enough explaining. It's time to get into the video. Just really quick, if you guys are interested in seeing more content like this, and seeing me make these kind of videos on all the other Tekken games in the series, please consider subscribing to the channel. That's the best way of telling me directly that you want to see more content like this. Thank you, and let's begin. Tekken Tag 2 was a much more defensive game compared to Tekken 8, and even Tekken 7. This was mainly because of the game's refined movement. Sidesteps and backdashes have never been stronger in Tekken history. Any kind of movement in this game is incredibly smooth, fast, and responsive, complementing defensive play very heavily. There was also much less tracking back then, making sidesteps even more useful. The strong movement in combination with the incredibly high combo damage meant people were very afraid to get hit. And characters with strong keep out and whiff punishing tools are going to do really well in a game like this. So it's time to talk about the Mishimas. The main thing that made the Mishimas strong in these games was their most iconic move of all time, the Electric Wind God Fist. You've probably heard it from many other creators, but the stronger movement is in a Tekken game, the stronger your whiff punishing launchers are going to be. And anyone who's played competitive Tekken knows, the stronger your movement options are, the stronger electrics are going to be. This is a whiff punishing move that comes out at 14 frames, 13 for this guy, and is +5 on block. This sounds like a pretty strong attack. Combined with the ability to tag buffer, which yes, you could tag buffer every electric in this game, would easily do 70% of your life bar, at minimum. We talked about it earlier, but the tag mechanic made launchers significantly better. Any launcher that you're able to tag buffer out of became god tier. Because of how strong the electrics were, picking a Mishima who had the best launcher in the game, combined with another character who had great wall travel, and could benefit really heavily not only from being able to tag buffer the electric, but also because of how high the electric knocked you into the air. You had way more room to extend the combo. And again, the core of these guys' game plans was honestly just using your amazing movement and looking for whiffs. This was before the days of infinite range gap closers like Kazuya's Devil Fist introduced in Tekken 8. You had to work pretty hard to approach, and this of course also made keep out and whiff punishing even more crucial. Let's start by taking a look at the man himself, Kazuya Mishima. Kazuya was very different back then. He was easier in a lot of ways and also way more difficult in a lot of ways. For example, in this game, Kazuya had an easy execution 15 frame punish with his natural down forward 1-2. New players might not think this is a huge deal, but it absolutely is. Kazuya players being forced to do a non-bufferable electric to punish moves on block that every other character in the game can do with the press of a simple button makes him way more inconsistent and thus far less popular in competitive play. Even the best players in the world mess this up sometimes. Doing it consistently is ridiculously hard, and when you factor in other things like latency and tournament nerves, it becomes even more inconsistent. But not in Tag 2. In Tag 2, you can just press a button. Sure, you get a much smaller combo, so you're still incentivized to learn how to properly do the electric, but this is still a huge strength to have on a character like this. The down forward 1-2 was also +1 on block in this game. In addition to this, Kazuya, just like every other character in Tag 2, had a complete throw game. These days, one character having a throw that requires a 1 break, one that requires a 2 break, and a 1+2 break is honestly the exception rather than the norm, and it's something that definitely holds Kazuya back. Opening up your opponents can be really difficult. and throws serve as a low-risk way to attempt to open up your opponent and test their reaction time, keeping them on edge for the rest of the match. Once you grab someone once in a tournament set, they're gonna have to be thinking about grabs for the entire rest of the game, and if they happen to miss a throw break, the pressure really starts to stack up. Any character in modern Tekken who has all 3 grabs is immediately better off for it. But in every other Tekken game, all Kazuya had was a 1+2 break, removing any possible mix-up potential. Not in Tag 2. In Tag 2, every character had all 3 throw variations, because the default throws counted as specific throw breaks. In addition to this, throws were much more difficult to break in this game, having only a 15-frame break window compared to today's 20 frames. Keep in mind that 99% of players to this day still can't break throws on reaction, so imagine how much harder it would have been back then. Besides these things, Kazuya was more or less the same as he had always been in this game. A very simple character, for better or for worse. Playing him would consist of this: moving around using Tekken Tag 2's amazing sidesteps, and using electric all the time. You want to whiff punish? Electric. You want to pressure on block? Electric. You want to drop your kids off at school? Electric. It did so much. You would still check your opponent with his very strong 1-1, and if you saw it connected, you would follow up to do the full flash punch combo string, knocking your opponent down on the ground and making them wake up to your very strong 50-50, where you of course threaten the iconic Hell Sweep or the forward 3 mid launcher. This is Kazuya. If you wanted the safe low poke, down back 4 was a great option, and his down forward 2 served as the all-powerful counter hit launcher, leading to potentially massive damage if you were able to perfect electric. He of course still had his famous weakness, being his lack of up-close options. His poking was weak, which definitely did hurt in a game like Tag 2 where poking was so important. The nature of Tag 2 being a tag game meant you could pick the second character in your team based on the first character, serving to cover up any weaknesses they may have. Kazuya might have weak poking, but once I switched to Lars, that is not a problem you are ever going to have anymore. And it was the same for any weakness your primary character might have. Being able to switch whenever you want mid-match added a ton of flexibility. This made team building a lot more thoughtful and intentional. Your characters really had to work well together. But anyway, back to Kazuya. One thing he had in this game that he doesn't have anymore was pretty toxic Oki. Tag 2 was before he received Devil Jin's Steel Pedal, which nowadays is sort of an all-purpose Oki move today. If you think your opponent's going to stay on the ground, use Steel Pedal. If you think your opponent's going to press a button, use Steel Pedal. It's a great move. Before he got this move, Kazuya players would go for a crouch dash while standing 4 or a back 2-4 whenever your opponent was on the ground. And in this game, both of these options would float your opponent if they tried to press any buttons, giving you a big combo. This was pretty crazy. If you tried to get up instantly, floated and comboed. If you tried to do a get up attack, floated and comboed. And if you stayed on the ground, he could of course threaten his stomp. This led to an incredibly strong setup in this game, where Kazuya would end the combo with a forward 4 and threaten the mix-up we just talked about. If he thinks you're going to get up or press a button, back 2-4 will easily combo you. If he thinks you're going to stay on the ground, stomp does a ton of damage. This is actually quite similar to Tekken 8 Season 1's Masku Tech, where Kazuya's would do the same thing. They'd end a combo with a forward 4, and would either get a guaranteed steel pedal if he didn't quick stand, or mix up a down back 4 low. While that was removed in Season 2, this one in Tag 2 was far more deadly, making a character who already had great Oki even better. Okay, but I mentioned that he was also a lot harder than he is today. Why is that? Well, Kazuya still had the age-old problem. He had to play a little bit too honest just to get anything going. Without the Devil Fist that was introduced in Tekken 8, his neutral game essentially consisted of moving around and using the electric. That was really it. He has the great big swings he's always been known for, of course, right? The Hell Sweep, the forward 3, the forward 4 for plus frames, but he's always lacked the filler moves to be used quickly in between these big swings to create pressure and safely chip away at his opponents. While this is of course still an issue to this day, it's alleviated pretty significantly by his new ridiculous approach tools. Devil Fist is one of the best neutral tools in the entire game. And if you told any Tag 2 Kazuya player that he would get this move in the future, they wouldn't believe you. Because of this, Kazuya wasn't seen in tournament too much, but he was still agreed upon as being incredibly strong, an easy top tier, and it was mostly because of the Electric Wind God Fist. He had crazy combos in this game, but believe it or not, he's actually one of the lesser damaging characters we're going to talk about in this video. So if even Kazuya could kill you with one combo if he had rage, imagine what the other characters can do. I think Kazuya really got the best of both worlds in this game. He was incredibly difficult and still very true to his classic identity, but would reward you for that dedication, unlike many other characters. I didn't mention it earlier, but Kazuya could also freely enter his devil form whenever he wanted in this game by pressing up back 1+2. This wasn't really used in competitive play because it wasn't the greatest, but I still thought that was pretty cool. Also, a lot of people don't actually know that Kazuya's new move he got in Season 2, being his sidestep 4-1, is actually a move from this game, which is inputted as his back 4-1. I'm really glad that move came back. So Kazuya was undeniably strong, but this is actually just the beginning. Let's talk about the God Mishimas. Heihachi was a unit in this game, sporting his young black-haired look. I'm sure there's people watching who only really know Heihachi through his modern appearance in Tekken 8 as a DLC character, but he was very different back in Tekken 7 and all the prior games. In this game, he was known for his incredibly oppressive pressure. See, in Tekken 8, the developers pushed Heihachi into more of a counter-hit character hybrid, giving him some cool defensive tools and massively damaging counter-hit launchers, but in exchange making him way weaker up close. I'm sure you've heard of it, but his down forward 1, the universal mid poke, was significantly nerfed in 8, making it a very sluggish -5 on block. This is important because down forward 1s are an essential low risk, low reward move that helps you control the pace of the game and lock your opponent down. With it being this minus in Tekken 8, you were pretty much always giving up your turn. In Tekken Tag 2, it wasn't like this. It was only -1 on block, which is exactly what we look for strong down forward 1 mid pokes. This helped him keep his opponent locked down so much. You'd see Heihachi players all the time just using jab, jab, down forward 1, and of course his classic 1 back 2 poke. These were all great tools. And all this combined with his Mishima style forward 4, which gave big plus frames on block, made him crazy strong up close. This was legacy Heihachi in every sense of the word. He still had the amazing counter hit utility he's known for today. He had his old forward 3, which back then was a safe, quick, counter hit launching mid for huge damage. This move today has actually become a stance transition move. His classic forward 2, which is a huge range launcher, had a lot more pushback, making it safe on block in a lot of situations. It also had way better tracking. His back 2 was actually a counter hit launcher in this game, and in typical Heihachi fashion, his main weakness was a lack of safe lows. He of course had his classic big boy down back 2, which gave huge plus frames but was a very big risk, and his hell sweep, which launched on counter hits. Again, he makes up for this though with his non-stop pressure, having some of the absolute best mids in the game. Who are we kidding though? Of course, like I already mentioned, the real star of the show was the Electric Wind Godfist. It's just so versatile, and whether you tagged out of this launcher or not, you were getting some of the highest damage Tekken Tag 2 had to offer. Just like Kazuya, he also had a complete throw game in a game where throws were incredibly strong, and he had an easy mode punisher just like Kazuya in his down forward 1+2. This was actually 1 frame slower coming out at 16 frames, but it was still incredibly useful for Heihachi players. Heihachi sacrificed some of Kazuya's God Oki and 50-50 utility, but more than made up for it having some great close range tools. Kazuya wishes he had Heihachi's poking. This made him pretty universally agreed as being a stronger Mishima than Kazuya, and this of course was shown in competitive play. Heihachi was a lot more common, becoming almost a staple, most notably because he was one half of JDCR's iconic tag team. Heihachi was even played by Knee on occasion. He was a monster, having suffocating pressure and lockdown, some of the best in the entire game. It didn't matter that his lows were risky, because you'd be crazy to ever try blocking low against him. He had some of the best and most damaging counter hit launchers in the game, and amazing combo damage in general, great mobility with his movement and the wave dash, the best move in the game, the electric, and even more stuff I didn't mention, like his insane wall combo. Heihachi was great, but even he couldn't handle the power of the true Mishima god. Even he couldn't handle the power of the devil. Devil Gem was pretty much always the best Mishima since his addition in Tekken 5, and this game was no different. He had the best combos out of all the Mishimas, of course through the previously mentioned electric. His electric also had more tracking, which was very useful in a game like this. While the other two Mishimas had strong combos, Devil Gem cleared them when it came to wall travel, which made him a lot more versatile, and meant you could rely on your other tag character more often, and then switch to him with a tag buffer to extend your combos. Devil Gem was the true all-around Mishima. Everything you could want in a character he had. Amazing poking, amazing combos, amazing movement, great lows, and of course, his 50-50. His 50-50 was great in this game. But surprisingly, his Hell Sweep actually didn't launch. His Hell Sweep is almost always a launcher, but in this game he only had the 4-4 version. But even this was very good. It still did 44 damage, which by the way is the same amount of damage Devil Jin's current launching Hell Sweep does in Tekken 8, but instead of completely resetting the neutral, it leaves him right in your face at big plus frames while you're forced into crouch. A lot of people don't know this, but it was also a counter hit launcher in this game. This was a good low for 50-50, but the real star of the show was his old while standing 2. This was the best this move has ever been. See, Devil Jin's always been defined by not having an easy, safe mid launcher. If Kazuya, Heihachi, or even Jin want to launch you when they think you're going to duck, they can easily go for a forward-to-forward 3 at very little risk to them, making their 50-50s a bit easier. Devil Jin has never had this, and has always relied on wave dash cancelling his while standing 2 whenever he wanted a mid launcher like that. While this is incredibly executionally demanding, if you could do it, the threat in Tag 2 was a bigger threat than any other game. Unlike in Tekken 7 and 8, the while standing 2 didn't instant screw, giving you far more deadly combos. Again, very important in a game where combos are the best they've ever been. This makes for a pretty damn good 50-50. It was still minus 12 as it is today, so of course you are always taking a risk, but the risk was a lot lower than the reward, which you'll see is a common theme in this game. If you wanted the safe mid, you of course had the classic Devil Jin up forward 4, being very quick, having full low crush, which was very important in this game, and knocking down into a guaranteed down back 2 on hit. I really missed this version of the move, before it got turned into a heat engager. People said he had one of the best lows in the game, with his down back 2, which was actually only minus 12 in this game and not 13. That one frame is a pretty big difference. That's the difference between being launched or not being launched with some characters. Of course it was super evasive and gave plus 5 on hit. But you can't be an all-around character without great poking. Luckily, Devil Jin had this in spades. His down forward 1 was excellent, before it got gutted in Tekken 8, much like Heihachi's. It has a safe mid follow-up, which is really good. We like safe mid-mid strings. He also had the best jab out of all the Mishimas, having excellent range. He had the classic laser cannon poke, being used to counter sidestepping and causing a little mind game on block. He had great neutral tools, like his OG Demon Paw, which at this time was something Kazuya and Heihachi wished they had. Everything is just there and accounted for. He covers all the weaknesses of Kazuya and Devil Jin. Bad poking? Nope, play Devil Jin. Bad lows? Nope, play Devil Jin. He was just so versatile. He also, of course, had his iconic turn stealer. I'm sure anyone who's played against a Devil Jin before has dealt with this move plenty of times in his up 4. A full instant evasive launcher leading to big damage to interrupt your opponent's flow is very nice to have. The other Mishimas wish they had a panic option like this. So this dude just really had everything. I didn't mention it yet, but he even had great safe counter hit options. He had his classic down forward 2, a safe on block, 15 frame fast counter hit launching mid, and of course he had the steel pedal, also being a safe mid counter hit launcher, and of course one of the best Oki tools in the entire game. Nothing is missing here. Even without the electric, he would still be very strong, but give him the best move in the game, and he can do literally anything. You can play this character as simple or as complex as you want. You want to only use 4 moves? You can do that. Or want to spend a ton of time becoming a specialist who knows every individual thing about the character. He does well for those kind of players too. He really just was the one-size-fits-all Mishima, and as you can imagine, he was easily considered the best Mishima in the game. He even saw a decent amount of tournament usage, mainly through cooldowns and knee. But what about the original Mishima? While not unanimously agreed as a super top tier by everyone, I think Jinpachi has more than earned his spot as one of the most influential characters in this game. Jinpachi was a great character to add to your team, as he shared a lot of the strengths of the traditional Mishimas, but had essentially none of the execution requirements. This makes him a pretty perfect tournament character. You don't have to worry about execution dropping, you don't have to worry about you getting nervous and messing up, he just did everything for you. He felt like a very streamlined version of Tekken. He was known for, you guessed it, having crazy damage. I mean, look at him, he's huge. The significant thing here though was his combos didn't require execution. To get the max damage combos on the previous 3 Mishimas, you would need to spend a lot of time in training mode. With Jinpachi, you didn't. He was also known for having some of the absolute best punishment in the Tekken series. His iconic 1-2 was a 10 frame punish doing a whopping 36 damage. It also wall splatted because why not? His 12 frame and back 1-2 did 45 damage and knocked you down for great Oki. If you didn't immediately back roll after this, Jinpachi could use his forward 3 for a guaranteed 20 extra damage. So he just did 65 damage from a 12 frame punish with no rage. He of course needed a 14 frame launcher as well. The almighty Jinpachi down forward 2. Who needs an electric when you have this? Being able to punish any minus 14 move with an 100 damage combo is a ridiculously strong trait for a character to have, especially in this game where combos were so good. While technically yes, the regular electric can be used to punish minus 14 moves, even the best Mishimas in the world aren't doing this consistently. Why go through hours of training and dedication just to hit it sometimes when you can play Jinpachi and press one button? He also for some reason had a 14 frame while standing launcher for whenever he blocked lows. Characters today having a 14 frame easy mode standing launcher is pretty rare. Same with having a while standing launcher. But a character having both? This is practically unheard of. Besides the punishment and damage, he was known for having very long limbs and great range on most of his tools. When he was up close, his poking was not as great as Heihachi and Devil Jin, but a lot better than Kazuya's. He had a 14 frame down forward 1, so 1 frame faster than Kazuya at least, and a similar back 1-2 to Heihachi, which was pretty nice. He also had a really great string in his down 2-1, being a hugely damaging mid-mid that is completely safe on block. It did 45 damage on natural hits, and the second hit could be delayed a lot to catch your opponent off guard. Why does it need to be delayed? Well, it's a counter hit launcher. A safe mid-mid string that's also a counter hit launcher is crazy good. So while he was fine up close, he did prefer to be a little bit further away, where he could threaten his true god move. If you've ever heard of Jinpachi, you've heard of the legendary down forward 1+2. This move was considered the best move in the game for a large chunk of Tekken Tag 2's lifetime. It was a completely safe on block, mid launcher with enormous range and big pushback on block. It was essentially completely homing as well, meaning sidestepping it wasn't even worth it. People would spam this move online, and it's easy to see why. It really just did everything. It completely shut down movement in a game where movement was so important. One of the absolute best moves in the game. This was his electric. Even though his down forward 2 also sort of fit that purpose. This honestly in retrospect feels like a Tekken 8 move all the way back here. He also had plenty of other long range pokes, like his classic down forward 4 being a safe huge range mid poke, a down forward 3 poke with a ton of gimmicky follow-ups. He had Heihachi's forward 3, but instead of being stagnant, it actually made him jump forward, making it really good from afar. It was still a mid counter hit launcher, so having a move like this with this kind of range is great. Speaking of long range, we can talk about his forward 3 being a pretty good full screen approach tool that was safe and guaranteed a follow up on hits. You could step it, but it's still a really good option to threaten with, especially combined with his long-range lows. We're already seeing a really scary character, who's effective at pretty much all ranges, has some of the best punishment in the game, and some of the best damage. So what is the catch? Well, his lows were poor. Honestly, even more poor than Heihachi's, and this was one of the main reasons people thought he was such a risky character. He had a Hell Sweep in his down back 3-1, which while doing huge damage, had no range. You needed to be stupidly close for this move to hit. He had down 3 as well, which was an insanely long-range low, which he would use when threatening you with his other long-range moves I've mentioned. This move was honestly pretty good. It knocked down on counter hit, which was very nice, but it was still launch punishable. And like most of his other lows, actually left him at a disadvantage on hit. Same with his low-high move, which a lot of people like to use. His safest low was his down back 4, being an okay low poke, only minus 13 on block. Heihachi definitely didn't have anything like that, but it still left him at a disadvantage on hit, so it wasn't great. So lows were clearly his weakness, but I don't think that's enough to stop Jinpachi. His mids and his overall pressure was just so huge, and the damage he threatened you with meant you were always terrified of him. He had quite a few other toxic stuff I didn't mention. One move we can mention is his up 4, which was spammed online. A completely safe on block jumping mid that on hit knocked down into really frustrating Oki. He would mix up between doing his down 1, which would float you for a full combo, much like the Kazuya Oki we talked about, or would do his stomps for big damage. This was a really frustrating situation to deal with. Jinpachi was just so cool, man. He made people terrified, as you could never count a Jinpachi player out. As long as he had a sliver of health left, he was still in it, and could steal the game with one single read, even if you were at practically full HP. His weakness around his unsafety could be accounted for by pairing him with another character who was more safe and more poking oriented. Like I mentioned, these days it is disputed among people if he was truly one of the best in Tag 2, but I think the impact he had in this game was undeniable and he was an absolute staple. Here's hoping he returns one day.
隊長、何か悪い夢でも。
いや、最悪の夢だ。
While the Mishimas might have had the best launchers, the character with the best tag follow-up to these launchers was undoubtedly Lars, the new kid on the block. The half-brother of Kazuya Mishima, being introduced in Tekken 6, was incredibly strong in this game. Namco was really pushing Lars to be the new poster boy of the franchise during this era, so they made sure he was easy to play and strong in both of these games. Tekken 6 Lars was a pretty poorly designed character. Everything just tracked on him and he could lock you down so easily. It just felt like such a drag trying to counterplay his options. We'll get more into this in the Tekken 6 video, but Lars in Tag 2 was actually nerfed compared to 6. He lost quite a bit and yet still somehow found himself sitting at the very top of the tier list. The main trait that made Lars so oppressive in this game was his combos and wall travel. You could hit a launcher, then tag Lars in, and pretty much always get the wall. He was designed to have wall travel like no other character. While characters having this kind of wall travel is a lot more common in Tekken 8, back then this was a big part of his unique identity. He was the wall travel character. This, combined with having one of the best wall combos in the game, meant you could honestly shove Lars into any team combination and that team would immediately become a threat. Besides that, he was incredibly all-around. His defining move in Tag 2 and Tekken 6 was his old down forward 2. You might recognize this move from the modern games as it can now be seen through his full crouch down forward 2, but this used to be a regular standing move, coming out at 15 frames. It was completely safe on block, had good tracking to his weak side, and was a full counter hit launcher for big damage. Lars since these games has always sort of lacked a strong mid counter hit launcher tool. The closest you really get these days is his back 4 with its animation and big damage on counter hit, but that's a far fetch from an 100 damage combo. And even then, he still had that move in this game. Down forward 2 was his best move for sure. But besides this, he just had a great tool for every situation you could need. The orbital was as scary as it always was, especially in this game. Having a low crushing launcher that is safe on block in a game where combos are this deadly is a big benefit. His classic down back 4 low counter hit launcher did way more damage than its combos. He still had good poking, he still had great whiff punishing with his back 3-4 and his forward 1+2 arc blast, he had great evasion on stuff like his up forward 3. His punishment was also very good, having a 14 frame launcher. We've been over why that's a big deal in this game. And with all this combined, Lars was considered the ultimate tag character. He was considered the best partner you could pick for almost any character. If you had a main and you wanted to make your team composition overall better, the best thing you could do was add Lars. He was incredibly simple to play, would make your combos dramatically better, and just had an answer to so many different situations. This of course made him a tournament staple. He was absolutely everywhere in both Tekken 6 and Tag 2. Because of this, people got really fatigued with this character and he became one of the most hated characters. So Tekken made sure to punish him in Tekken 7 for his sins. But honestly, the more I think about it, this was a top tier from a much more balanced time in Tekken's history. People hated Lars back in these days, but imagine if those people could see the unpatched Season 2 Lars. Yeah, I think it's safe to say things were a lot better back then. He was much simpler in scope. Rather than a character who just dances around, rushing between stances, he more so just played very privileged Tekken. He scaled amazingly with a rage mechanic, was simple to play, and just filled any role you could possibly need in a teammate. He had amazing fundamental tools, but also matchup checky stuff to throw your opponent off guard. He did still have 2 full stances after all, with tons of great moves. Lars was great in this game. Bruce is an absolute gem of the Tekken series roster, and it's really a shame we haven't seen him again since this game. If you ask me, this is by far the coolest Muay Thai character we've ever gotten, and he was excellent in this game, being a counter hit monster, much like Brian. Combine that with top 5 damage in the game, being very simple to play, and lacking the big execution demands Brian would require, you have a great character here, both online and in tournaments. My favorite part about Bruce is just how impactful all of his big swings feel. They just have so much weight to them, it really feels like you're obliterating your opponent when playing him. His most defining move was his classic back 2, a 16 frame, huge range mid-strike that did 33 damage on normal hits, knocking down into a guaranteed follow-up for 46 total damage on normal hit. This move was considered one of the strongest counter hit launchers in the entire game, doing godly damage. If your opponent pressed into this, they were dying. Of course, it was also completely safe on block, so there was very little risk to yourself. This was the move everyone knew to look out for whenever fighting the character, because, like I said, getting clipped by it was a death sentence. You basically had to give up the round. In addition to this god move, he also had one of the best Magic 4s in the entire game. Before Tekken 8, most characters had a 12-frame Magic 4, being a high counter-hit launcher, but normally the damage you would get from the launch would be relatively scaled and limited. Bruce's somehow still did insane damage compared to all the rest, and despite it being a high, no one was ever ducking this guy because the threat of the back 2 was just so huge. He had plenty of other huge swings as well, like his back forward 4 being a huge mid launcher that technically was minus 10 on block, but was actually completely safe because of how much pushback it had. You could also tag buffer this move, opening up some of the best combos in the entire game. This isn't even a counter hit launcher, it's a normal hit launcher. He also had his back 1+2, which was a normal hit launcher that had full high crush. And of course, it's safe on block. Everything had to be safe on block on this character. A lot of people don't actually know this, but he also had a low counter hit launcher, which was a lot more rare in these days. His down back 3+4 would give big combos on counter hits. It was also only minus 11 on block. A minus 11 on block low counter hit launcher is practically unheard of these days. The best one in Tekken 8, Leo's, is minus 12. The move was balanced around it being pretty slow coming out at 24 frames, so good players would react to it, but it was still a super useful tool, especially online, and added to him being the counter hit monster we all know him as. So we've talked about his launchers and counter hit launchers. He excels unlike almost any other character. So many huge hits. And him following up with his godly damage meant you always had to respect him. But there was also a lot of other interesting stuff about the character. Bruce had a crouch dash style stance, although you couldn't chain them together like Bob or Armor King, and he got some pretty cool options through them. Like his most used low, his crouch dash 3. This was an infinite range chunky low, doing 31 damage on normal hits, and while it didn't do anything on counter hits, the sheer damage and range, along with people not generally wanting to duck Bruce because of how threatening his other options we mentioned are, meant they would use this a lot to chip you down. It was also only minus 14 on block, so most characters couldn't launch it if they blocked it. Newer players would use this move in addition to his crouch dash 2, which is a big normal hit launcher, as their 50-50. Though this was very risky, as the mid launcher was minus 14 on block. More skilled players would still use the low we talked about, but instead of the crouch dash 2, would use the back 2 as their mid option, making it a lot more safe, making for a pretty good and safe 50-50. The range also cannot be underestimated. Look how much range both of these options have. We haven't even talked about his punishment yet. His 10-frame punish was legendary, the 1-4-3, doing 38 damage from a 10-frame punish. Based on pure damage alone, this is the best punish in the game, though I argue Jinpachi's 10-frame we talked about earlier is actually better, doing a little bit less damage but giving a knockdown, which is super valuable. Besides this 10-frame, he had a normal down forward 2 for a 15-frame launcher, which was nice, but the best part about his punishment was while he was crouching. If you blocked a 13-frame low on Bruce, you could use his while standing 2-1 and actually get a full launch just like Kazuya and Eddy. Considering how much he already has, being able to launch your opponents at minus 13 is a crazy quality to have, especially considering how many lows were minus 13 in this game. Bruce's weaknesses are generally considered to be his poking and lows, but neither of these were big enough issues to hold him down. The poking was mainly bad because of his down forward 1, coming out at 16 frames, a whole 3 frames slower than the standard down forward 1. This is very sluggish. It did have a couple interesting follow-ups, but it was not a good down forward 1 by any means. He had his neutral 3, which was a 13-frame mid-poke with good range, but was minus 8 on block. Not the best, though you did have an extension, and you could cancel this into crouch dash for mix-ups if your opponent respected you. His best pokes in my opinion were his crouch dash 1, being an 11-frame very safe mid, with high and mid follow-ups for mix-ups. Still, despite how good this poke was, being locked behind crouch dash definitely hurt this move. If you wanted poking, he also had his while standing 1, which was a pretty similar move. It was slower, but what made this move so good was its counter hit property. On counter hit, it gave a guaranteed follow-up for 61 damage into knockdown. This is honestly kind of similar to some of the moves we see in Tekken 8 these days. Safe, but hugely rewarding counter hit mids from while standing. This was very nice to have. As for the weakness of lows, we already mentioned his chunky crouch dash low, but he also had some other pretty cool stuff. His down forward 3 was one of the weirdest moves in the game. It was a pretty slow low with good range, but this low was actually safe on block. And I don't mean safe as in only minus 11, this was fully safe. You couldn't get a punish if you blocked it. It was only minus 9. A very weird but useful move to have. What other characters have true safe on block lows in this game? He also had his down 4, which was actually very noteworthy. In Tekken, most characters have generic down 4 and down 3 low attacks. These moves are usually defined by being incredibly fast, the fastest lows in the game, but having terrible properties. Low damage, bad range, and launch punishable for essentially no reward. The risk reward is not good on these moves. Bruce had some of these disadvantages, but he made up for it with its range. Having this much range on a generic down 4 low was super good, and it was so fast that you could use it to interrupt things all the time. Don't underestimate Bruce's down 4. It also did 18 damage, which is a lot higher than most generic lows. Just another cool thing to add to his toolkit. Despite what we've mentioned so far, he had a lot of other really cool swings, like the 3+4 homing move, which is one of the coolest animations in the entire game if you ask me. He also had a unique Muay Thai stance that he could access from certain moves, though it wasn't particularly strong. Overall, this character was great. He was very simple to play and had some of the heaviest hitting launchers in the entire game. Getting hit by him was always a death sentence, and he could threaten you from a big variety of ranges. Bruce was great to throw into just about any team, and you actually saw him in some of the most damaging teams in Tekken history, like the infamous Eddy Bruce team, which terrified people in online play. But don't worry, we'll be talking about Eddy soon. Armor King was an absolute fan favorite amongst the community, and one of the most defining characters of Tag 2. Most known, of course, for being part of the iconic JDCR team. This character was arguably at his best in this game. Armor King, just like King, is a grappler, having some of the best throws in the entire game, and is generally defined by sacrificing a little bit of that throw utility compared to King, but getting a way more all-around brawler-based kit. He had way better movement than King, more all-around pokes and brawl tools like I mentioned, and god-tier whiff punishing. These days, King has actually taken quite a few of Armor King's tools. Even the Wave Dash, which was supposed to be Armor King's specific thing that King didn't have, can now be found on King in Tekken 8. In Tekken 8 in general, King has gotten so many other non-throw related amazing moves that the differences between the two are fading very fast. I'm really hoping in Tekken 8 they rework Armor King to make them truly stand out like they're supposed to. Armor King in Tag 2 was a very all-around character. He benefited heavily from the system in Tag 2, with throws being extremely hard to break compared to how they are today. Just like King, he has hugely damaging throws, chain throws with built-in mix-ups, and lots of ambiguous throw animations. Of course, having King's iconic Giant Swing and Shining Wizard mix-up, with a very ambiguous grab animation. Giant Swing is a 1-break throw, but it looks like a 1+2 break throw, meaning it's very visually deceptive, and you'd basically have to take a guess whenever the King or Armor King would throw out these two throws. Of course, I don't need to tell you guys why getting 60 damage from a throw in a game where not only are throws way more difficult to break, but most of the player base can't break them, is a huge quality to have on a character. Armor King's ground throws were also incredible in this game, and gave him arguably the best wall game out of any character. After getting you to the wall in a combo, he could go for his ground throw, putting you in a very deadly situation. The throw immediately makes you stand up, and gives him a hugely damaging unscaled follow-up in his back 1-2. He could mix up this ground throw with another one that had a 2-break, and this one gave a guaranteed stomp if you immediately tagged, doing 75 damage total. 75 damage for not breaking a throw at the wall. Good Armor King players would end their combos a little bit early with a guaranteed ground throw, making it unavoidable, and force you to either break the throw or take crazy reset damage. Besides this, there's another huge strength that comes with ground throws in this game, and it actually involves a mechanic we haven't even mentioned yet in this video. The infamous Tag Crash. In Tag 2, whenever your partner had rage, you could do what was called a Tag Crash, essentially being a last-second get-off-me tool. As soon as you hit the ground after being knocked down, you could press 2 plus the tag button to perform this technique, and as you can see, it consists of your other character quickly flying in and doing a full switch. This jump-in attack was pretty safe, only being around -2 on block, and served as an excellent tool to completely skip your opponent's Oki and immediately get up off the ground. This did come at a cost, however, with Tag Crash consuming all of your rage and getting rid of any recoverable health your tag character might have been recovering. While not punishable on block, Tag Crashes could still be punished if you hard read it, normally by sidestepping, but this wasn't enough to deter people from using it. Tag Crashes were used all the time. and were so helpful in avoiding bad situations where you just wanted to get off the ground as quickly as possible. Okay, so how does this relate to Armor King? Well, ground throws in this game essentially made it impossible for your opponent to use a tag crash, completely getting rid of one of your opponent's best options. This is a huge strength for any character who had these ground throws. Just being able to skip over universal mechanics like this is a big deal, but it was especially good for Armor King, who easily had the best ground throws in the entire game. In addition to this, there are so many clips and videos going over Armor King's specific tech at the wall. And if you ask me, this was by far his biggest strength and was mainly what made him a top tier character. He also had great damage. Hitting 3 electrics on a Mishima and then swapping an Armor King to bound and finish with a Shining Wizard is one of the coolest and best combos in the game. It was like this with any character really. If you ended the combo with Armor King, you'd get big damage. And he was so flashy, one of the absolute coolest characters in the game. Okay, so he had strong throws like King, his ground throw game and wall game was amazing, but what else? Well, as I mentioned earlier, Armor King has a Mishima style wave dash, which combined with the Tag 2 free flow movement system was huge for him. He could utilize the game's insanely fast sidesteps, backdash, and using his wave dash to get in and out really quickly. But what is movement without an electric? Armor King's most well-known move is the Dark Upper. Also known as the Palm Upper and sometimes Dark Smash, it's had a lot of names over the years. Performed by pressing Crouch Dash 2, this move, just like an electric, was one of the best whiff punishing tools in the entire game. Just like all the other electrics, it could be tagged out for huge combos. Now, it wasn't exactly as strong as an electric, it wasn't plus on block like the other electrics, and was actually minus 10, but it doesn't matter. If you use this move properly, your opponent should never be blocking it. You would reserve it simply for whiff punishing, and then get access to one of the best moves in the game. He complemented this electric having great poking tools with his very long range limbs. His back 2 having crazy range, down forward 4, King just didn't have this kind of stuff. His jab and down forward 1 were also pretty good. The forward 2-1 move you see on King today actually used to be an Armor King exclusive move, and was an excellent whiff punishing tool. He also had his original sidestep 2 in this game, being a mid that if spaced properly could actually be safe, and on hit gives a knockdown into a guaranteed 3+4 follow-up. If this follow-up caught your opponent trying to get back on their feet, it would float for a combo. Pro Armor Kings abused this move. The sidestep 2 also had a second natural hit that was a normal launcher. Armor King also had counter hit utility, mainly through his back 1, being a 12 frame safe counter hit launching high, but he also had a counter hit launching down forward 2, though it was unsafe at minus 12. He had a great assortment of lows, like his down 3 and down 4, down 3+4, his forward neutral 2 being a counter hit launcher. He just had so much. Everything you could want in a character, Armor King had. Tag 2 is most likely Armor King at his best, and I'm really hoping they do a good job bringing him back to Tekken 8, and he returns to his former glory. I love this character. People in the Tekken community have always joked that the best Mishima is Bob, and it's pretty easy to see why. The character actually has a ton of Mishima tools. He has a wave dash for some reason, he has the flash punch combo, a hell sweep, an electric-like attack out of crouch dash. There's a lot of similarities here, but there's also a lot of very non-Mishima type stuff. He had ridiculous poking, having the best jab in the entire game, while also having some of the best poke strings in the entire game. This was one of the reasons people hated fighting Bob online. Every single poke he had came built in with tons of extensions. A mid extension, a high mid extension, a high mid mid extension. They just never stopped. Whenever you thought it was your turn to punish Bob, he would throw in another attack that you had never seen before, and the string would just keep going. It was so frustrating to deal with. This made him an insane matchup check. In addition to this, Bob was somehow one of the most evasive characters in the entire game. Yeah, you heard me right. The guy whose whole identity is just being fat was actually really hard to hit most of the time. Some people would joke that he's more evasive than Zhao Yu. This is because he had some really weird and unique evasion tools that were super relevant in competitive play. He had his back forward 1, which was the best backswing blow in the entire game, being only minus 11 on block with frame 1 evasion. He had his sidestep 1+2, being a great evasive pressure and punish tool, the infamous down back 1+2, which was a massive range normal hit launcher with insane evasion. This was so spammable, despite being very risky on block. Bobs would just use this move constantly. He had an orbital-like move, plenty of other panic options, he even had a Shoryuken out of his wave dash. A Shoryuken in Tekken. Like, what is going on here? Besides these, just like Lars, Bob was designed to be very easy to use. A lot of people argue Lars and Bob in Tekken 6 were actually the beginning of the dreaded modern Tekken characters, and were designed to be as pick up and play friendly as possible. Both of these guys were just so all around. If you wanted anything in a character, they could do it, with half the work of the other characters. That's not to say that Bob didn't have any weaknesses in this game. He was actually nerfed just like Lars coming from Tekken 6. His electric lost its normal hit launching property, now only launching on counter hit like Jin's old hook fist. This is a huge deal. His old best move, his down 1, was nerfed pretty heavily, becoming way slower, though it's still strong in this game. And of course, Bob retained his classic weakness of lacking a 15 frame launcher, only being able to launch at around -17. So you're probably thinking, what makes him a true broken top tier? Sure, he has great tools and he's very all around, but what I've described so far doesn't really seem that bad. Well, the most broken thing about Bob in this game was actually unintentional. In the beginning of the video, we went over how the combo system worked. The best combos would consist of a launcher, then tag buffering another character in, juggling them until you used your bound, tag assaulting for some extra final damage, and then ending the combo. This is how it was supposed to go. Bob didn't have to play by these rules. He had a bug which made tag assaulting with Bob as your reserve character ridiculously OP. While it was decently hard to do, if you tag assaulted him after your bound mid-combo, his while standing 2-1 had a glitch which actually allowed you to completely reset the combo, putting your other character right next to your opponent in a reset juggle state, reset knockback, and reset damage. This allowed for an extra mini juggle when your combo was supposed to have ended quite a while ago. This is game-breaking stuff, and led to some extremely unnatural combos. Every other character in the game would have their opponent splatted far off after using a move like this in a tag assault, but Bob had Harada and Murray watching over him from above, and let him literally break the fundamental rules of the juggle system. As you can imagine, this was absolutely insane, giving him and his partner combo damage that was impossible to get on any other character. Just looking at it looks weird. It feels like something is very off here. This glitch, combined with his already great fundamental Tekken tools, crazy evasion, gimmicks everywhere, and ease of use, made him one of the absolute most popular characters in competitive play. Seeing Bob mirror matches in grand finals was actually very common, and served to make him even more hated amongst the community. This game forever damaged Bob's reputation, and even though he was a lot weaker in Tekken 7, people still hated this guy. Bob and Lars really did run Tekken Tag 2. And you'll have to wait till the Tekken 6 video to see when this character was truly at his most OP. Because trust me, this is nothing compared to how he was in Tekken 6.
Desculpe, mas tenho uma coisa pra fazer.
Você vai pegar aquele malvado que matou seu papai?
Eu volto logo.
Oh, Eddy Gordo. Anyone watching this who played Tag 2 online is completely traumatized by this character, and his clone, Christy. Double Capo was one of the most notorious teams in the entire game. Let's start out with the obvious stuff. Eddy had one of the most overpowered moves in the entire game, his old back 1-4. This was a 2-hit safe mid-mid string, coming out at 14 frames, so very fast, and on counter hits would not only counter hit launch, but would give Kazuya perfect electric damage. Combos with wall would do like 140 to 150 damage, very consistently, with little execution. And if Eddy had rage, forget it. It allowed for 180 damage plus death combos from a 14 frame safe mid-mid counter hit launcher. This is the best counter hit launcher in the entire game, and arguably one of the best moves in the game. It was unlike anything we had ever really seen at the time. Just to give you some perspective, this counter hit launcher did 64 damage without a combo. Before the combo even starts, you got 64 damage. Imagine if Jin's forward 4 did 60 plus damage just from the first hit. Why was this a thing? This move of course goes into his handstand stance as well for regular pressure, has different versions, it has extensions, all the stuff you'd ever expect from Eddy. Strings galore. He also had great poking tools and great mix-ups, like in his relaxed stance, where he has his classic unseeable mid and low launcher. His 50-50 in this stance was actually pretty broken because the low launcher for some reason didn't stagger on block back then, meaning even though you called out his most deadly low launcher, he could continue his stance pressure and you could still get hit even after hard reading it. Remember when people were complaining about Season 2 Lars in Tekken 8, with the stomp that forced a mix-up on block? Well, Eddy was doing this almost 15 years prior. Now you might be asking what his weakness was. Eddy's biggest weakness was usually always lacking a proper sidestep up until Tekken 8. He just couldn't move around like the other characters, and that definitely hurt him. And despite the other good tools I mentioned, he wasn't particularly common in competitive tournaments. Pro players just seemed to find ways to deal with his most annoying moves. So the character, just like he is today, definitely thrived in online play when people didn't know the matchup properly, and there was latency to abuse. In my opinion, however, one main thing really made Eddy a top tier character, and it's something we haven't really talked about yet in this video. Tekken Tag 2 being a tag fighter was one of the reasons this game was so much more complicated than other Tekken games. The series is already known for being one of the most difficult series of fighting games. Just learning one character properly can take thousands of hours, and forget about learning what everyone else does. That's such a big time investment. Tekken Tag 2 was just like this, with a roster of over 50 characters, except in this game you were forced to play 2 characters. Technically, you could opt to only play one with increased health, but this would leave you at a big disadvantage, so it wasn't an option in competitive play. No, in this game, you were forced to learn 2 characters. If you aren't too into competitive character-based games, you might think, oh, what's the big deal with this? So let me explain it. There's a big reason why most pros in any game tell you, pick one character and stick to it if you really want to get good. Having a main in fighting games is one of the most important and defining part of these games. Just learning every possible thing about a character. When you spend this much time with your main, you learn all the micro stuff, like how to deal with all these very specific situations, what to do for each and every problem that might occur during a match. This level of mastery really can't be achieved on multiple characters. But in Tekken Tag 2, you are forced to divide your attention and your growth as a player between 2 characters. While this was beneficial in some ways, it definitely holds you back in a lot of others. With almost every top player, they had their true main and then their secondary, who they usually weren't quite as good on. Even if it was a percentage difference of skill between their 2 characters, this could make a big difference in last-hit tournament moments. So what if I told you that by playing Eddy, you could almost completely circumvent this problem? A couple characters in Tekken Tag 2 had clones, which acted as fully separate and independent characters. In Eddy's case, he had Christy, a clone character who is almost identical to him in terms of the movesets. Playing a clone character had so many benefits, essentially allowing you to put all your time and energy into one character in a way that no one else really could. I argue that having a clone in this game is honestly enough to give your character quite a big boost on the tier list, so when already good characters have clones, it makes them a lot stronger. Eddy players could really learn the character, and didn't have to worry about learning matchups and situation-specific stuff on other characters. Everything just went into Eddy and Christy. Lee and his alter ego Violet were also made much stronger by being clones. And while great, I do think Eddy and Christy were better overall characters for the game. They were just so oppressive and so cheap with the back 1-4. Eddy and Christy were probably the best team you could invest your time into this game. And as much as people don't like fighting this character, you can't deny, Eddy was a very important part of Tekken Tag 2. He was arguably at his best in this game. Maybe it's just a personal thing for me, but I would honestly prefer to get this version of Eddy back, even with all the broken stuff, rather than his current iteration in Tekken 8. But I'm sure I'm just a scrub who needs to learn the matchup, and I never actually had to deal with Eddy in this game, so maybe I'm wrong for that one. But yeah, these are the characters who I believe were the most important top tiers of Tekken Tag 2. There's plenty of others I didn't mention. Nina, who was incredibly powerful, having the best poking and rushdown in the entire game, along with her legacy difficulty coming in some of the most insane combo execution out of any character. She had a tool for pretty much every single situation. Definitely a god of this game. Along with her legacy difficult and combo execution. This character just had a tool for every single situation. She was so good in this game. Lei Wulong was apparently also really good in this game. Pretty cool to see considering he's been bad for such a long time now. Leo is actually very popular in competitive play, and I'm sure there's even more than I'm forgetting about. This is a huge game, with so many characters and stories to tell. Maybe one day I'll revisit this game and talk about some of the other characters, what they were like, how they were different from today. I'm sure that'd be interesting. For now though, I think that's about it for the video. Make sure to let me know what you think about this game. Do you look at it more fondly now that we're in Tekken 8, or did you really never like it to begin with? If you guys enjoyed and are interested in a video like this on the other old school Tekken games, make sure to subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments. I'm super interested on making them, but these videos actually take a ton of work, so I'd like to know if there's actually interest before I go ahead and make another one of these. If there's a particular game you'd like to see me cover more than the others, let me know that too. I'll definitely be going over all of the feedback. I want to quickly give a huge shout out to my YouTube members, who have continued supporting me despite my terribly inconsistent upload schedule. Seriously, thank you guys so much. It really means a lot that you guys are willing to stick with me. I'm also working on some more member-only videos, so make sure to check those out if you're interested. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy.